So I can clearly say that this topic is very close to my heart because it's all about the rise of the lower tier cities in India. And I think that's where the leaders are focusing on. It's not just the urban cities, but also the tier 2, 3, and 4 cities. How are we getting those consumers to also shift their mindset and drive the retail industry in the country? So this topic is truly close to my heart. Let's go ahead and, without much ado, go ahead and invite the leaders onto the stage. Could we have a huge round of applause as I invite the CEO for Grocery Reliance Retail? Let's have a huge round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, a very interesting topic as I just spoke about the story. Could we have Mr. Damodar Mall on the stage, please? Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. As we spoke about tier 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how we are arranging even the chairs at the podium, right? Beautifully done. Thank you, team. All right, let's go ahead and also invite Mr. Pushkaraj Shenoy, the CEO for Lakme Unilever. Let's also invite Mr. Akhil Jain, Director, Jain Amar. We also have joining them Mr. Chandrasekhar Kaul, who's the Managing Director for Beyond Square Feet. We also have Mr. Amit Sharma from Soch and Mr. Gaurav Bansal, for India Head for Google Maps platform. Could we have all the leaders on the stage as we move forward to a very interesting panel discussion right away? And to moderate the session, may I invite Mr. Sharad Nagpal, the Head for Retail Services North India and International Business Development India, JLL. Over to you, sir.
Hello. Yeah, thanks. Okay, I am cognizant of the time that we are already running late. So, and thanks to Mapic for a warm welcome to the panelists. I would like to straight away jump into the discussion with my fellow co-panelists. See, emerging market, to my sense, is no longer emerging. That's how I would say. I think we are all playing the catch-up game, especially when we talk to the biggies like Mr. Damodar Mall, who represents such a massive group in Reliance, or be it Amit, who already has presence since, forget about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they have presence in tier 4, tier 5 cities already. And by the time we will finish the session, I think they would have entered tier 6. That's the nature of the business right now. So just to set the context to the discussion, a city like Lucknow or a city like Indore or a Surat has already seen over the last 2 years, or 2 to 4 years rather, before COVID, a presence of established developers moving into these markets. We've also seen a lot of institutional investors going and setting up organized shopping centers and increase the penetration of organized retail in this market. My question to the group is, and I would like Mr. Damodar Mall to come in, Pushkar to come in and share his points of view. What is the trend in terms of shopper behavior? Is the food, grocery, retail still driving footfalls? Has the maximum amount of wallet share? Is the cinema also now adding to the mix? So, Mr. Mall, if you could just start, please.
Sure. If you are talking about Indore, Surat, and Lucknow, then I'm afraid the train hasn't even left the station.
Right.
Yeah. In my scheme of things, even Kakinada, which was mentioned,
Yeah.
is a big town.
Yeah.
We're talking about Tadepalli Gudam, and we are talking about Nalgonda, and we are talking about Sikar. These are the places where, if you want to see green shoots, that's where you have to go. Is what I would say. And what I learn in my travels, what I learn from our own both physical and digital offtake data, from digital shopping offtake data from these towns that I mentioned, is that the demand and the customer aspiration is actually ahead of us.
Right.
All of us retailers, as well as we are modernizers of the shopping process. There are people who are modernizers of the space process. Both of us, I think, are running behind, and we need to catch up with this consumer, is how I would say.
Right. Right. Pushkar, from your point of view, you manage the Lakme portfolio under Lever. Lakme also has far greater penetration within that category, I believe, and with Lever as the supply chain framework that you have. What are your learnings for this?
So one, I run the professional beauty business for Unilever. So we run Lakme salons across 160 cities, 450 salons across that, and Dermalogica, which is the world's #1 professional skincare brand. So I'll speak limited to that. But of course, our parent Unilever has penetrated down pop strata,
Yeah.
like how, right? So I think this tier is a mindset that, you know, suppliers or people on the supply side have created to ease their lives, right?
Right.
And a tier 1 consumer or a tier 2 consumer or a tier 6 consumer, and I don't know where the numbers go, doesn't think of himself or herself as a tier 6 consumer
Right.
at all, right? And I think if you're in a consumer facing business, you need to be extremely consumer centric, but not just that. Now technology allows you to be need state centric, right? So I am a consumer, but across need states, the way I choose and the criteria that I employ to make that choice are different. And technology allows you, wherever you're sitting, to actually operate on that segment of one and on the need state, right? So first, I think, you know, if you're in the consumer-facing business, you have to be not just consumer-centric, but need state-centric,
Right.
And I think this, what also happened during the pandemic, I think a lot of people who had migrated from smaller towns to larger towns for employment, actually in that space of a year went back and they worked
Reverse
out
migration.
of those towns.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think they've all come back. But in that 1 or 2 years that they've spent there, I think the impact that's happened in those towns, right? Because earlier it was largely through the digital medium, what people saw on social media or when they traveled. But I think now you had people or almost like ambassadors going in and infecting or let's say accelerating that infection of change as well, right? So they've
Right.
come back leaving those trends. And I speak from the professional beauty business. Earlier we would, you know, really test out a lot of our innovations, especially the trend-setting ones in the metros and even within metros, certain catchments within metros, right? So let's say we would test it out in a Bandra or a, you know, central Bangalore, etc. Today, we have to test it in all across pop strata, right? So we would test it across 20 different towns, see how the initial feedback is, and then go on. Because adoption of even trend, you know, now has, I mean, it just moves really, really fast, right? On the supply side, I'll add a little bit more because we have a franchise business. The kind of partners we used to have earlier, and I wouldn't label the partner as traditional, but had a more traditional mindset, right? Who would start by saying, कानपुर में तो ऐसे ही होता है, right? या बिलासपुर में तो ऐसे ही होगा. But today, that mindset is dramatically different. And even our franchisee partners today, they are professionals. I recently launched a salon in Bilaspur. Our franchisee partner is a PhD in HR and extremely progressive. We've launched a 3-floor salon. We don't even have such salons in Bombay or Bangalore, right? So I think it's the kind, but there are lots of professionals, retail professionals,
So-
IT professionals who have now gone back there
Yeah.
and have set up, you know, on the supply side also there is a lot of progression.
So I think the essence is what Mr. Damodar Mall also said, that demand already exists in this town. If we don't go and capture, consumer will go, either they will go digital, e-commerce, or if it's experience led, they'll start going to the larger towns abutting these smaller cities. So it's important the physical infrastructure also follows and gathers pace. I would like to get views from Amit and Gaurav now, also from technology point of view. Amit, again, just to repeat and get your sense, how are you seeing shift towards cinema viewing consumption pattern in these smaller towns? And is it better because families come in hordes, people book part of the auditoriums for birthday celebrations, for anniversary celebrations? How is the trend that you are seeing in these markets? And is it better than the major metros?
So I think what the other panelist has already said. I just want to echo, couple of the points. So one thing we always talk about the consumer behavior and the consumption pattern of India, and we always talk about out of the 1.3 billion people, we end up talking about only about 150 to 200 million people. These are the people who are consuming in India, and rest of the people are not. The reality is that the rest of the people are not given an opportunity to consume the retail or entertainment, because 65 to 70% of the India resides in places which is less than 500,000 kind of city, which is basically a district population. And then when you look at the whole consumer base, it's close to like 2 million plus, 3 million plus kind of consumer base. A particular city basically caters in and around. So when we started Mirage Cinemas, our focus was completely on these cities, and that's how we actually expanded our footprint. So if you talk about Sikar, you talk about Hisar, you talk about Sonipat, you talk about Chandrapur, Akola, all these places, Raichur in Karnataka, Gulbarga, these are the places where we already operating cinemas, not just now, but at the same time from years. We are just opening a beautiful property in Amravati now. So this is actually the place where we feel like, the consumer needs this kind of, entertainment space. That's point one. Point two, yes, this is a smartphone age consumer. They are aware of what is multiplexes, what is retail, and what is the kind of product they want to consume. You cannot go with an inferior quality of product. So absolutely, Bilaspur, if you're opening a 3 floors of, Lakme Salon, which is like Mumbai, it is fantastic. And when it comes to Bombay as a city, or maybe Delhi as a city, Bangalore as a city, I mean, just look at today's example. I mean, even if you have one of the best mall here in Geo Drive, I cannot travel from Malad to here to watch movie or to consume. Reason being, it took me 2.5 hours to come from Malad to here in BKC today in the morning. So let's understand that even in a city, it is not a particular mall who's basically catering to an entire city, but at the same time, they're catering to a 3 to 5 kilometer or maximum 10 kilometers of radius. So what we are talking here is the consumer, also there is a mindset that, the rural consumer basically does not have paying capacity. But if I can talk from, from a cinema point of view, it is absolutely wrong.
Right. That's very interesting.
Barring the few marquee, the real estate area of the country, which is the top 10 cities, the rural consumer, or basically the tier 3, tier 4 city consumer, they have equivalent paying capacity in India.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Amit. Gaurav, to get a perspective on what are the trends in technology that you are witnessing, and how is your company, Google, trying to innovate and get more out of retail and technology collaboration, with the eventual aim of driving up the revenues and growing the pie, right? So would you like to share your thoughts on the trends?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to clarify, I represent Google Maps, part of the Google organization. So my views would be a little more focused, given that Google is into lots of different businesses. So to begin with, I would say I would almost be stating the obvious if I say that the world around us has changed, and how, especially in the last couple of years, the pandemic has impacted almost all industries, and retail perhaps is one of the most impacted industries. So when we take a step back and look at some of the trends and look at the data on Google Maps usage, we see there has been almost a 400% increase on the kind of searches about shops near me, restaurants near me, shops which are open near me. There has been a 400% Y-on-Y increase that we've seen in the last 1 or 2 years, and especially driven by pandemic. We have seen the shopper behavior has spread across different mediums, given that everyone is omni-channel now. The average age of consuming technology has gone up, once again thanks to pandemic. People would now searching for a certain product that they want to buy on a certain platform, and from an iPad to a desktop to a mobile, and the final purchase may actually happen in a physical store.
Right.
And hence the line between an online to offline experience is actually getting blurred. And to a point being made in the previous panel, we need to be present where the consumer wants us to be.
Absolutely.
Curbside pickup is something which is becoming more and more prevalent and common.
A lot of malls have started this.
A lot of malls have started doing this, exactly. And hence the technology as a solution has evolved in the last 2 or 3 years, irrespective of whether you are a small player, a big player. Consumers have started becoming far more comfortable in consuming technology. And why is that happening? There are more than 700 million active internet users in India, which is almost 50% of our population. And half of that resides in the rural India. and you could argue tier 2, tier 3, whatever cuts that you make, and the 700 million number is expected to touch 900 million plus by 2025. So given that we are talking about this changing consumer profile, for a lot of people, a handheld device is the first television. It is the first
Yeah.
device through which they consume technology, and hence we need to be present there. So these are some very clear technology trends which are being visible. Yeah, happy to talk a little more on how location and
As a,
data
as,
plays
as,
a role.
as a physical retailer, let me just add
Yeah.
to make it a little more real. When I launch a store,
Right.
the hoarding that I put up to announce that the store is launched can be delayed by 2 days.
Yeah.
But I make sure on day 1, on Google Map, the store is visible because that's
Absolutely.
the first thing
Yeah,
that the customer is going to check out.
No, no. Plus, also, I think in these cities, people are already looking forward to the launch, as you rightly said. I remember 2014, I was in Gorakhpur for official work, and coincidentally, Domino's was getting launched. It was a half an hour queue just to enter Domino's store. That was the first store of that city. So that tells you the aspiration levels. I'm talking about 8 years back. Obviously, world has dramatically changed since then. So just to get a perspective now from Chandrasekhar and Akhil, your point of view on this before we move to the next subject.
Shall we go first?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, looking at the growth of tier 2 and tier 3 cities from company's perspective, what I would like to share is if I look at the work that we have done in last 13 years, in terms of the square feet area delivered, 50% of the area was done in tier 1 and metro cities, and 50% of the work was done in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. But when I look at the last 2-3 years, the proportion has changed to 80 to 20% in favor of tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Right.
And if I look at tier 2 and tier 3 cities from the lens of a retailer or a shopping mall developer, see what they're looking at is a sizable population, people with disposable income and willingness to spend. And from what we gain, all of these ingredients are available in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. If we talk about the macro indicators, see in terms of population, we are going to be the most populous country next year. In terms of economy, we are already the 5th largest economy in the world and will be the 3rd largest by 2030. In terms of per capita GDP, will increase by twofold by 2030. Disposable income is also expected to grow by 50% by 26-27. Also to add, we are also in the phase where we are reaping the benefits of the demographic dividend, and it is expected that we are in that phase till 2050. Currently, 65% of the total population is a working population. So all of these factors will give a great impetus to the growth of tier 2 and tier 3 cities as far as retail is concerned. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Akhil, your point.
Yeah, from a technology perspective, as we were talking about technology, so as a modern retailer, we were already a D2C brand. Now, what happened with the new evolving term D2C, which has become more e-commerce centric and more omnichannel centric, what insights we get now is that tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 towns, as we say, are getting serviced. The pin codes are getting serviced from brands like us, from brands like Myntra and other aggregators. So, and especially with this pandemic and a lot of people who were actually moved from the smaller towns to the larger towns for their employment or for the education also. And the last 2.5 years, they've been all back. And today, when we talk about work from home and work from anywhere now, so the consumer is accustomed to a certain lifestyle now. So they want to go to the same theaters, they want to have the same dishes on the table, they want to wear the same brands. As
Amit mentioned, experience cannot be inferior.
Experience cannot be inferior. And see, ultimately, the consumer is now used to it. I mean, you cannot lower down what you become used to, even if you have changed your location. So, that is also giving a lot of impetus for brands like ours and other premium brands also to penetrate into those cities.
No, absolutely. Thanks a lot for that. Now, moving on to the another related topic within emerging markets, I wanted to pick your brains that now that we are talking about further penetration into these smaller cities, what do you feel should be the game plan of organized retail? Should we wait for 500,000 square feet, 1 million square feet kind of shopping centers? Or you feel that we are already lagging behind, as we said in the game? Should real estate developers and funds look at creating micro developments, and they could be multiple in nature within that specific city, let's say a 0.2 million or a 0.3 million, if not an enclosed shopping center, maybe a high street or a hybrid model where you have cinemas, you have grocery so that families come in larger numbers, then you throw in food and beauty and wellness so that experiences, all sorts of experiences are covered. So what is your take on that? I'll start with Mr. Damodar Mall first.
If everybody comes along, it's nicer because it makes for a destination.
Right.
But our approach is developers ke saath bhi, developers ke baad bhi. I don't think I'm waiting because my customer is asking me to move faster.
Right.
There's one more thing. Access and convenience, I believe, is overrated. Indians, the whole celebration and a destination is the natural way in which Indian consumer habits upgrade. People don't upgrade for 365 days.
Right.
They upgrade for a festival. They upgrade for a shadi.
Right.
They upgrade
For an event.
Instead of going in a bus for the Ashtavinayak Darshan, they start going in an air-conditioned hired car. So
Right.
people upgrade on occasions. And, in smaller towns, in smaller places, when we create a destination of this kind, we become the modern equivalent of, not a correct analogy, but of a destination temple.
Right, right.
Yeah, and it's not convenience. In the most famous temples are the most inconvenient to reach.
Absolutely.
I think collectively, if you are able to put together, the important bit is the why is it worthwhile coming there? And to continue the temple
What is
analogy,
unique?
we have to work on the size of the blessing. People will walk 300 steps. People will travel. The retail analogies in smaller towns, people travel for 30 kilometers to do their shopping and eat out and spend a day at a mall and see a movie at a mall. So if everybody comes together, we become a bigger destination. Our catchment goes up, but we are working with landowners to create our own sites which are suitable for our business from scratch.
Right.
The faster
That's
we
interesting.
all come together, the better is what I would say.
Great. Pushkar, your thoughts on this?
See, I totally echo what Damodar has said. And I think one thing we must understand that in smaller towns, consumers or even, let's say people in those towns, they're extremely entrepreneurial, right? Unlike us, people who have grown in large towns, waiting for the 10-10 local and, sort of a larger system to align to, in smaller towns, and I think it's to do with lack of public transport and public infrastructure, they're used to navigating their own path, right? So if there is a demand and brands which are operating or have a very narrow, large town focus do not, cater to that demand. And either it's a large format store like Damodar's where, you can call the shots, partner with landowners, etc. Or even small format stores like mine, which reach out.
Yeah.
If we don't do it, somebody locally is going to do it. That demand, that need state will be catered to. We'll miss the bus if we don't get there.
No, but the moment somebody like a Reliance or Mr. Damodar Mall, gets this initiative through a landowner, obviously the ecosystem starts getting built. You will have Amit coming and putting up a cinema, maybe as part of the same establishment, and there will be more space. So,
My point is, it is an imperative to cater to the demand.
Yeah.
If we don't do it,
somebody else will do it.
The people there themselves will do it, right? You go to a small town, I'm not taking names, you go to many small towns,
Right.
and I'm not talking about the 3 lakh, 1 lakh type towns, I'm talking about really small towns.
Taluka level.
You will actually find that if the residents of that town have exposure to, slight large town living, and it could be through following an influencer also, you will actually find that a coffee shops there will have a cappuccino and a latte and a mocha on their menu card, right? And the local guy is doing it. You're not waiting for a Starbucks or a,
Absolutely,
barista to come there and set up shop.
No, plus I think two interesting things have also happened from our point of view, the way we are seeing cities growing. Infrastructure is a major focus of this government specifically, and road highways. and road and rail network and all, suddenly you see the amount of SUVs being sold. There's a reason behind that, right? People are not just driving within the cities. People are actually traveling and seeing the country. If people are not going out, they are spending more travel time in leisure destinations inside India, right? Which means that they also want more and more experiences, as sir said. So how do you increase the number of experiences for these?
See, I'll give you one example. Sorry to just add to that. See,
No.
I think some of these have badge value in consumption itself, right? So the car you drive, the phone you use, etc. But let me talk about skincare. Now, that is something where, you get a skin health benefit. It's quite guarded as such, right? We had a slightly, different view because we came as Dermalogica as the world's largest brand. And we found that we were not accessible to the small town consumer. And it's a luxury brand. The average product is about 5,000 rupees for 30 ml, right? So you can imagine that it's not an affordable, accessible experience. But there are 25 million consumers in India who can actually get access to this brand just for skincare.
Right.
And 25 million is larger than the population of Australia, right? But they are spread across the country. 21 million in large towns. And I'm not talking about metros, large towns. So all urban and the balance even in rural. Now, if a brand like Dermalogica needs to access those consumers, we need to break bulk, right? And we have broken bulk by actually having unit size packs for the first time anywhere in the world because the brand prides itself that we will not go down, pop strata and we will not go down a certain, threshold level. But we have actually had to do that because otherwise we cannot access those 25 million people. And this number will keep growing. I'm saying 25 million now. Next year when I sit here, it will be 35 million, right? So you will have to break bulk. You'll have to contextualize to culture. Otherwise, somebody locally is going to do it.
Absolutely. So Amit, just to carry on that thought, so we are not waiting for the infrastructure being built is what we are saying. So how do you see your sector being played out in that manner?
So I think, we started this second conversation with what should be the right size of the retail space you need to go with this kind of places. I think we are not the one. I mean, probably at least I'm not the one who can actually guide that, maybe 2 lakh square feet or 3 lakh square feet or, 500,000 square feet, what is actually the right mix. But at the same time, probably I can only talk about what should be the right size of the multiplexes needs to be done in a different cities. Because see, when it comes to cinema, we need to understand cinema is basically a consumption from movies first.
Right.
And, Hindi belt has only Hindi movies playing and only English or English dub. And similar way, when you go down south, you have multilingual options available.
Right.
So only my advice to all the developers when it comes to making a cinema in, in the different part of the country, you first need to understand it is just not real estate. You need to consult with the right people who are from the industry so that you don't oversize the cinema space, you don't undersize the cinema space and optimize the cinema space. That is going to make a lot of difference to the entire, the mall as well as to the cinema operator who comes in.
No, absolutely, because I think the moment you get people inside an experience center, shopping center, experience center, whatever you may call, cinema and food and grocery, these are the three categories what I feel which attract people for the maximum amount of time. The amount of time spent inside a shopping center, this is the maximum within these three categories. And then smaller other categories will come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, see, if you look at cinema, on an average in north part of the country, I could put across that, we screen close to 300, 350 movies in a year.
Right.
And in a year. And when you look at south part of the country, that number goes to close to 500 plus kind of movies. So here you're talking about every week, on an average, 6 to 8 new product, which has been offered for, and cinema is the only space which basically caters from a toddler baby to a probably the old age people. So we have the product available for every age group, and every age group people come to cinema, and that's how we are the biggest the crowd puller, and which pulls the crowd from all the age group.
Right.
So my point will not be the size of the mall, but my point will be the size of the cinema, number of screen, and it should not be undersized and oversized in a place where you're making.
Right. Gaurav, you, and then Akhil, I'll come to you and Chandrasekhar. Just to carry this thought quickly, and then I'll summarize. How can technology, play a role in maybe guiding, developers or investors, I know demographic is one, category wallet share is another, growth of demographic is another, are certain data points. But mobility, you think, will now play an even greater role with the way infrastructure is improving within the country?
Absolutely. I mean, being part of Google Maps, I have the good fortune of working with companies of all scales and sizes from all different kinds of verticals. It is often noticed that most companies talk about this top 10% India being the consumer India, but then I can also see a lot of focus from these organizations is on improving operational efficiency for this top 10%, but the real growth and expansion is really coming from the next 30%, next 40%. And you're absolutely right. I think role of technology and specifically Google Maps, irrespective of the size of city, cuts across. And I'll give you an example. I mean, think about the roles that all of us play in our organization. I can almost say it with certainty that geospatial and location has increasingly been playing a role. To contextualize this for retail as an industry, deciding where to open up my next mall is a location-based decision, is a geospatial decision. Making sure that your physical property, cinema or mall, is discoverable, like Mr. Damodar Mall said, is nothing but coming up with a very nice, attractive store locator to make sure that you are discoverable, irrespective of the size of the city that you may be in. Once you have established a physical store, you want to make sure the consumer reaches you or your products are delivered to the customer in the shortest possible time, which once again becomes a location and a mobility play. Fourth, you want to also make sure once the retail format becomes big enough, a lot of cities are already thinking of indoor mapping so that it is very easy for the customer to reach to the exact store and does not spend a lot of time. And last but not the least, we also want to geo-target the right customer if it's a large city, and that's where all the marketing dollars are going. So as you can see, there is location and geospatial cutting across.
Absolutely. No, that's very interesting. Akhil, from your perspective, from Madam's perspective, again, are you waiting for infrastructure being built, as we said, or are you going into these cities depending upon the data that you have from e-commerce and other shop-in-shop formats? And are you taking those decisions that we will enter those cities, smaller city, take that punt, open a store on a high street, and see how the market grows and then shift inside the mall in case the mall comes?
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen those developments because India largely, except the metros, is already in a high street heavy place. And with vanilla stores like us who require about 1,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet worth of space. So probably it becomes very easy for us to penetrate these tier 2, tier 3 towns. And Madam being in the business for almost 2 decades now with the retail space. So we are already about 65% high street oriented.
Yes.
And for us, for example, opening up a store in Kullu,
Yeah.
and Kangra, I mean, they have given us amazing numbers. I'm not sure when a developed retail establishment will come over there, which probably might not come very soon. But the business has to run, and the businesses are phenomenal.
Right. Very interesting. Chandrasekhar, from your organization perspective, since you cover a lot of malls in smaller cities.
We are running short of time. I'll just quickly summarize. So basically, any town or city which has population of more than 5 lakh, what I feel, they are ready to accommodate a mall of 2 to 3 lakh square feet easily. Because for a mall, you need a certain size to get all the components, all the ingredients into the mall to make it a one-stop destination. Having said that, there are exceptions. We have also done malls where population is less than 1 lakh. Because you have to take into account that that city may not be the only catchment. The nearby towns may also get catered by the mall that you do in that city. Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. So just to summarize, I think the biggest and the macro level takeaway is that these cities are only further going to grow. The number of cities within the fold will only going to grow further. And whether we call tier 3, 4, 5, that's irrespective. The demand is just there. If you don't take it, somebody else will take the share, as Pushkar said. So with that, I would just like to thank each and every member of the panel to sharing their insights today. Thank you.